हाँ जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। न्याज कैसे हैं? अस्सलाम वालेकुम न्याज, कैसे हो? Hello, Nyaz, can you hear me?
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम सलाम, कैसे हैं?
Yeah.
How's your preparation?
Pretty good so far.
Pretty good, Jan, alhamdulillah. What about the other subjects?
Kind of chemistry is kind of difficult.
Why?
Chemistry is weird.
Okay. Chemistry is weird. Yeah, that's true.
Physics and math are going surprisingly well.
Jan, alhamdulillah, that's good. That's good. Jan, you just wait for a minute so that the others can join in. Then inshallah we'll begin. Okay?
So it's actually a Maghrib here, so I'm gonna go pray and I'll be back.
Okay, sure. Take your time. No problem. No problem. जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम। आदिया कैसी हैं? खैरियत से हैं?
जी
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह। चलिए जी। Wow, there's so many questions on ecology, you know. चलें, anyhow. चलें जी, बिस्मिल्लाह करते हैं। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम. So inshallah, very quickly, I want to give an overview of what we did yesterday. हमने शुरू किया था अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. We started off with the topic of ecology. I had some initial discussion about the name of the topic. Okay. Relationship of organisms with organisms and relationship of organisms with their environment. Okay. So of course we talked about in terms of energy and all of that stuff, and we talked about some of the initial definitions like population, community, ecosystem. मैंने आपको सिलेबस नहीं दिखाया अभी तक. इसमें सिलेबस में भी उसने specifically he has asked for some definitions, and that also include the definitions that we saw in the food chain and likes of that. So very quickly, let me open the syllabus. Okay, so there is the syllabus. ले जी, ये है जी आपका काफ़ी ज़रा लंबा चौड़ा इसका syllabus है. So very quickly, let's go through some of the points. बल्कि इसकी मैं snapshot लेके जो है वो अपने वालों पे लगा लेता हूँ ताकि when we're taking notes, this is easy for us. Okay, so that's the syllabus. Okay, and this is the remaining part of the syllabus. Okay. बच्चों आजकल स्कूल में आप लोग के कोई एग्जाम्स वगैरह चल रहे हैं, मॉक एग्जाम्स वगैरह, या अभी होने हैं?
सर इस वीक हो रहे हैं.
इस वीक हो रहे हैं. अच्छा, तो बॉयज और आप लोग भी चल रहे हैं. चलिए अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. All right, very quickly, let's begin. So alhamdulillah, we started off with looking at the first point, which says state that the sun is the principal source of energy input into biological systems. Jazakallah khair. बस ठीक है. Okay, so हमने इस पे बात की थी कल कि how the energy, the source of energy is the sun, and why is sun not part of the food chain and all of that stuff. And then we went on to explain the second idea, which is describe the non-cyclic nature of energy flow. मैंने जो आपको ये वाली स्लाइड दिखाई थी कल बच्चों, ये वाली स्लाइड ये देखें. This slide which showed the sun and all of that stuff. Yep, this. So this explanation is very important. ठीक है कि कैसे नॉन साइक्लिक का मतलब है कि वो आगे नॉन साइक्लिक फैशन में फ्लो करती है, डज नॉट रिटर्न बैक, एंड ऑल्सो you know the fact that it is lost. So there are two aspects to energy that you need to understand, and you should be able to describe them in detail. The first one is of course the non-cyclic nature, और second जो energy losses हैं, ये देखें जो है ना आपका B part और D part, these are actually related ideas. Okay, so B part says describe the non-cyclic nature of energy flow. Okay, and D part, I'll come to the C part. D part says describe energy losses between trophic levels and infer the advantages of food chain. ये हम बात करेंगे इस पे इंशाल्लाह, advantage of short food chains पे, लेकिन we also saw एक general सा मैंने आपको outline बताया था कि it's 90% of the energy is lost. 90% of the energy is actually lost when we're proceeding from one trophic level to the other, and it's only 10% that is transferred. Okay. Acha, now I want you to look at the definitions. That's the reason I brought the syllabus. So producer, इसकी देखें definition उन्होंने यहाँ पे syllabus में दी हुई है. An organism that makes its own nutrients, usually using light from sunlight through photosynthesis. यहाँ पे उन्होंने प्लांट्स को स्पेसिफाई नहीं किया हुआ, इट इज यूजुअली प्लांट्स, कुछ रेयर केसेस में और चीजें भी हैं लेकिन वो हम नहीं देखते वो लेवल्स में. देन कंज्यूमर is an organism that gets its energy by feeding on other organisms. And if you remember, in the food chain, you will come across words like primary consumer, secondary consumer, and so on and so forth. फिर हमने herbivore की बात भी की थी, an animal that obtains its energy by eating plants. Carnivores, an animal that obtains its energy by eating other animals. I discussed omnivores, हमारे syllabus में नहीं है लेकिन क्योंकि related चीज है तो मैंने आपको बता दी थी. Decomposer, an organism that obtains its energy from dead or waste organic matter. Does anybody remember what are the two main decomposers that we've studied in microorganisms?
So bacteria and fungi.
Yep, bacteria and fungi. Shabash, bacteria and fungi. Okay, so that's what he's touching here. And then finally, food chain is a chart or a diagram showing the flow of energy from one organism to the next, beginning with the producer, and they've given an example. Okay, Acha ji. So describe and interpret pyramid of numbers in pyramid of biomass. This is basically what we're going to talk about it today, inshallah. Okay. Now, talking about the food chain ka generally you guys understand the idea of what is food chain, how does it look like, what do the arrows they represent. Almost 90% is lost, 10% is transferred. That's a good idea, and all of us, we understand this idea. Now we need to extend this idea beyond the food chain. There are two diagrams that we use. The first one is pyramid of biomass, and the second is pyramid of numbers. Okay, so I will come to this diagram first, which means pyramid of biomass. Okay, देखिए pyramid of biomass या इसको हम pyramid of energy भी कह देते हैं. It's the same thing. Okay. You have to understand this diagram will always be the same. Always be the same for all food chains. Okay. हम pyramid of numbers में देखेंगे कि pyramid of numbers they vary actually according to different food chains, but the pyramid of biomass or / energy will stay the same. Now, you can see in this picture, the text says that ecologists draw a pyramid of biomass by weighing all of the organisms at each stage of the food chain. The mass of the producers is the largest mass. Okay. I just want you to ignore this text. I'm going to cut it out. असल में ये मैंने सिर्फ picture ली हुई थी इसके लिए. Okay, why is my connection unstable? बच्चों मेरी आवाज clear है? Okay.
बीच में कट गई थी अब ठीक.
Sorry. Okay. चलें. तो ये हैं जी हमारे खूबसूरत सी marking scheme और उसके ढेर सारे points. So I'm going to just explain the points first, and then I'm going to give you examples, and we are going to draw these pyramids of biomass together. Okay. So if you look at this diagram, it says, सबसे पहली बात है ये, what is a pyramid of biomass? Let me write that down here once again. It's a pyramid of biomass. Okay. Now the idea is very simple. Don't get make it so technical कि आपको समझ में ना आए. देखिए pyramid of biomass क्या है? Simply it's a diagram, and the pyramid of biomass will always be in pyramid shape. Okay, ये याद रखें. जैसा मर्जी food chain हो, it will always be a pyramid shape. It shows the dry mass or the weight of living organisms at any one time. Now, you have to understand that for any pyramid of numbers या biomass, जो length है बार की बच्चों वो हमेशा same होगी. The length is always the same. Okay, but what varies is this length, the width, if you like. This way, आप देखें pyramid of biomass में, as we are proceeding up in the trophic levels, the width of the block, if you like, it decreases. Look at this point, it should make sense. The larger the block, the larger the width of the block, let's put it this way, the greater the mass at each trophic level. आप मुझे ये बताएं, सबसे ज्यादा एनर्जी सन से डायरेक्टली कौन ले रहा है? Which trophic level is gaining the largest amount of energy from the sun? What do you think?
The producer, the first one.
The producer, of course. Okay, so that's why the width of the bar for the producer is the maximum. Okay, so that's a traditional pyramid, followed by, okay, so now we need to understand, why does the width for the caterpillar, for example, sorry, snail, in this diagram, why does it decrease? I mean, somebody can argue कि हो सकता है कि the mass of the snail is more than maybe the three plants that are shown. And the definition actually says it's the mass, but it's actually dry mass. The reason it gets smaller is because we know that after each successive trophic level, almost 90% energy is lost and it's only 10% that's transferred. Therefore, the bar squeezes. And as you proceed further, the bar further squeezes. And as you proceed further, the bar further squeezes. So therefore, you always will have a typical pyramid shaped. ठीक है? जब वो आपको एग्जाम में कोई भी फूड चेन दे और वो कहेगी you have to draw the pyramid of biomass, um, but the pyramid of biomass will be the same. What will differ is going to be the pyramid of numbers. Now let's take an example. Okay, now again, this is a diagram which is representing now the pyramid of numbers. अच्छा जी, pyramid of numbers क्या है? Okay, I have a question for everybody. So if everybody can be kind enough to answer this question for me. In the pyramid of biomass, I'm not talking about number, bacho. In the pyramid of biomass, what is the width representing?
The amount of energy.
Amount of energy, shabash, very good, excellent. अच्छा, मुझे आप ये बताएं कि ये जो pyramid है, it starts with the first trophic level, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. Okay, does it follow this sequence?
Yes, sir.
It actually does. We have to keep in mind that always for a pyramid of biomass, the first thing you will have is the first trophic level. Okay? Acha. The same is the case for pyramid of numbers. The only difference is that the width now is going to represent the number of organisms in the food chain and not their energy. Okay? And I will give you inshallah an example. जिसकी दोनों हम pyramid of numbers भी बनाते हैं inshallah, and we will make pyramid of biomass. So inshallah it will make more sense. ठीक है जी बच्चों? Okay. So let's look at the diagram, the point, sorry. So it's a diagram, shows the number of organisms, not species. It is the number, यानी कि कितने हैं, 10 हैं, 20 हैं, 30 हैं. Species की बात नहीं हो रही है, each trophic level at any one time. And this is the most important point. The width or the length of the band indicates the number of organisms. Okay. The number of organisms decrease towards the top of the pyramid. ये मैंने क्या लिख दिया? हाँ, ठीक है. The number of organisms, they usually decrease at the top of the pyramid. That's usually. There can be exceptions, of course. Let me put that here. usually okay excuse me. Okay, producers are always first followed by consumers and अच्छा अब मैं आपको एक example देने लगा हूँ. So let's say we have, I'm going to draw this for you, okay? So let's suppose we have a tree. Exam में usually आपको diagram देगा. Okay, you have a tree and then you have aphids. You know what aphids are? Aphids are small insects that basically, you know, they feed on this the phloem and और ये इसकी अंदर जितनी भी branches हैं इसमें भी आपको aphids नजर आएंगे. So these are aphids. Okay, their number is many. So there is one tree. Okay, there are many aphids. ठीक है. अच्छा जी. फिर आपको दरख्त के ऊपर कोई चार पांच जो हैं वो लेडी बर्ड्स नजर आएंगे. Ladybirds. Let's get, okay, ladybirds. And then you have insectivorous birds. तो जो कुछ birds हैं ऊपर उड़ रही हैं जो कि maybe they consume the ladybirds. Okay, so you have two of them. Now in the exam, usually you will be given this diagram. Now you need to make sense first कि अगर आपको कहा जाए कि जी draw the pyramid of biomass. Pyramid. Let's draw the pyramid of biomass first for this particular diagram. Okay. So as I said, the pyramid of biomass is always going to be the same. So we will start off in a traditional way. That's the first bar. इसको हम साइड पे लेबल करेंगे tree, which is बच्चों the producer. ठीक है. Labeling of the pyramid is very important. Okay. अच्छा जी. What's the second trophic level, बच्चों? What is directly, you know, ladybirds जो हैं, birds जो हैं, याद रखें, they are eating aphids, okay? They like to eat aphids. So, what do you think should be the next in the sequence?
Aphids.
Aphids. अच्छा, aphids क्योंकि काफी ज्यादा हैं, लेकिन क्योंकि सेकंड पे हैं तो इनकी लेंथ तो सेम होगी, लेकिन इनकी विड्थ जो है वो मैं थोड़ी कम करूंगा. इनको हम एफिड्स लेबल कर देते हैं. रिमेंबर दिस इज pyramid of biomass, we're not talking about numbers. So this is what do I call this thing as? Can I call this as primary consumer? कह सकता हूं कि नहीं कह सकता बच्चों?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, jazakallah khair, primary consumer. Okay, great. And then I will draw a third pyramid for the ladybirds. So these are the ladybirds, and they happen to be the secondary consumers. ठीक है जी. And finally, I have the what do you call these things as? The birds. ठीक है, ये birds हैं आपकी. Okay, and these are tertiary, secondary, tertiary, third level पे tertiary होता है. खाली consumer भी लिख देंगे तो ठीक है, tertiary consumer. ठीक है. So you will, the examiner will see that you've labeled it with correct sequence, and you know the width of the bars is changing. That is representing the energy levels. Okay, the length is the same. Now, if for the same diagram, I were to ask you to draw the pyramid of number, keeping the same rules in mind, can you quickly, I'll give you a minute, can you draw it for yourself, please? The pyramid of numbers. मैं तो आपको बता देता हूँ. I'm just waiting for a minute. I just want you to draw it yourself, keeping in mind that the width will represent the number of organisms. Okay? चलिए शाबाश. Draw करें, फिर मैं आपको draw करके बताता हूँ. So, pyramid of numbers. All right, I'm giving you 30 seconds. Quickly, if you can draw this, that will be wonderful. Okay, चले मैं भी आपके साथ साथ draw करता हूँ. So again, the sequence is going to be the same. Let me write down the sequence for you. So it's the tree, which we know is the producer. Okay, then we know it's the aphids. Okay, they are the primary consumers. Then you have the lady birds, which happen to be the secondary consumer. यहाँ पे abbreviations मैं सिर्फ जगह बचाने के लिए लिख रहा हूँ. Of course, in the exam, you will write in full. So birds is the tertiary consumer. Okay. Now, the width, bachon, is supposed to represent the number. How many trees can you see in this diagram?
One.
One. Okay. So हम क्या करेंगे? हम इस तरह की एक छोटी सी बार बना देंगे ट्री के लिए. ठीक है? And then aphids, what is their number? Is their number the maximum of all of the things that you can see in this diagram? देखिए लेडी बर्ड्स बेचारी कितनी ड्रॉ की है मैंने 1 2 3 4 5 I've just drawn 5 of them. Okay, and the birds are 2 of them. Tree बेचारा एक है और aphids कितने 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 15 aphids. Wow, I've drawn 15 of them. So clearly that is showing you, this diagram is showing you that the number of aphids is the maximum. So इसके लिए मैं क्या करूँगा? I will draw a bar that is the widest of all the bars. आप नोट करें कि जो लेंथ है बार की ये वाली चीज ये सेम है. Okay, that's the same. Okay, I haven't changed that. That's supposed to by convention stay the same. It's just the width that changes. Okay, and then the ladybirds, are they more than the aphids or lesser than the aphids?
Lesser.
Lesser. तो इसका बार हम थोड़ा सा हम छोटा ड्रॉ करेंगे. Of course the height has to be the same. And then finally the birds are 2. Of course वो tree से थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा होना चाहिए लेकिन lady bird से कम होना चाहिए. So it will be something like the following. Okay, so this is a typical diagram of pyramid of numbers. Okay, so from the exam perspective you will be given situations जहाँ से आपने to draw the pyramid of biomass is honestly not a problem. Pyramid of numbers where you just have to open your head, you know that's the sequence being followed. So you start with the producer, then go to the primary, secondary, tertiary, you label it, and you vary the width depending on what you're drawing. Of course, the pyramid of biomass is always going to be the same, but it's the pyramid of numbers that varies. ठीक है बच्चों? Is that clear? Does everybody understand?
I have a question. So,
Yes, they are.
the pyramid of biomass, right? Is this constant in all the food chains?
Yes,
Like
more
the
or less, yes, it is, because you understand that by definition of food chain, as you go along the food chain from producers to primary to secondary to tertiary, tell me what happens to the energy.
The energy is lost in all
So
of them, every food chain.
yeah, exactly. So therefore, it has to be
All the same.
all the same, all the same.
Okay.
जी
Got
कोई
it.
और भी कुछ पूछ रहा था? Nobody? Okay. Is everybody clear on this? Okay, alhamdulillah. चलें जी. ज़बरदस्त हो गया. इसकी मज़ीद हम एग्जांपल्स इंशाल्लाह जब हम क्लास में प्रैक्टिस करेंगे तो उसमें देख लेंगे. But this is basically what I wanted to look at. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is we are going to move on to the next topic, which are the cycles basically. Okay, and this is a very interesting topic of cycles. Or you need to understand the context of the cycles. You know, when you're talking about the cycles, you need to understand that why are we talking about cycles? Yesterday we talked about sun being a renewable or a non-renewable source.
Renewable.
Renewable. But there are some resources in the environment that are non-renewable, and therefore we have the idea of recycling. Okay, there are 2 cycles, bachcho, that are included in our syllabus. Okay, the first one is carbon cycle, and the second is nitrogen cycle. I'll do the carbon cycle first. That's actually quite easy. Not to say that the other is difficult. but the other is usually not given in a very good way in textbooks. So inshallah, let's do the carbon cycle first, and then we'll move on to the nitrogen cycle. G.
पिरामिड ऑफ नंबर्स में अगर हमारे पास वो ट्रीज का अगर नंबर ज्यादा हो जाए, अगर 2 हो जाए, तो वो हम लोग किस तरह करेंगे?
Okay, that's a good question. So if the number of trees they become 2, then मैं orange color से draw करने लगा हूँ. इसी situation में जो tree का size होगा वो ऐसा हो जाएगा. I'm sorry, it has to be the same length. Wait, it will be something like this. Something like this. Exactly. No, actually it has to. देखें ऊपर जो birds हैं वो 2 है ना, तो बिल्कुल इसी की जो है ना वो size का मैं यहाँ पे draw करूँगा. Something like this. You understand? Something like this. Okay. I mean it's a कोई फिक्स्ड साइज नहीं है कि वो एग्जामिनर आपका रूलर रख के जो है वो साइज मेजर करना शुरू कर देगा. इट हैज टू बी रिलेटिव. ओके. एंड द क्वेश्चंस विल बी सिंपल इनफ फॉर यू टू इंटेलिजेंटली फिगर आउट कि किसका नंबर कम है और किसका नंबर ज्यादा है. ठीक है. ऑलराइट, चलें जी, हम एक काम करते हैं. वी आर ऑलमोस्ट 27 और 30 मिनट्स इनटू आवर लेसन. लेट्स टेक आवर ट्रेडिशनल 1 मिनट ब्रेक. ब्रेक से आके फिर हम रिज्यूम करते हैं and let's talk about our cycles inshallah. ठीक है, चलिए जी, I'm ending the lesson. Please rejoin in a minute. Thank you.